So welcome. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Irosha Govender. I am CEO at Diversify. Diversify, you will hear a little bit more about what Diversify does for those of you that don't know our company. But I'm joined today by our COO, Eric Ackroyd. Eric's based in Johannesburg and I'm based in Cape Town. And we're very glad that you took the time to join us today and to listen to what we have to say about telling your transformation story. So without further ado, I'm just going to very quickly, for those of you that may not be aware, Diversify is part of a group called Alternative Prosperity. Some of you may actually know us as Alternative Prosperity or started with us as Alternative Prosperity. Over the years, naturally, the company has evolved and grown, and so we are now segmented into different business units, each with a specialization and a focus, but very much complementary and integrated to our overall purpose of societal change. So Diversify in particular, our focus is on BE and the BE legislation and everything related, as well as ownership advisory and transformation strategy development, as well as diversity, equity, and inclusion services. We have a sister company called Solve SA. Solve SA specializes or plays a role, more of an intermediary role, but brings BE solutions across the scorecard and connects clients to service providers whilst doing the vetting and ensuring that the service providers that are put forth are credible and will result in impactful solutions. We also have a sister company called Six Capitals. Some of you may be aware of Six Capitals. They have an ESG focus around advisory and reporting, and also development finance. We also have a stake in a company called DNA Economics, whose focus is very much on economic policy development and research. They also do quite a bit of monitoring and evaluation and impact assessments. And then we have a stake in a company called Valio. Valio specializes in corporate finance. Valio is who we partner with around ownership structuring for our clients. That's Valio. And last but not least, I'd like to tell you very quickly about two of our social impact partners. The first being Atleha Edu. Atleha Edu is the focus there is really on consumer financial education and bringing our clients or offering our clients interactive as well as awareness initiatives around consumer financial education. These include publications, videos, but also in-person workshops. And last but not least is our Alternative Prosperity Foundation. The focus areas of this foundation is around youth development, women empowerment, and fiduciary training and empowerment. So that's just very quickly about our whole group of companies. And now zooming in onto Diversify, just very quickly our service offerings. I'm not going to waste time here because I think most of you are familiar with our company and what we offer. But just to paint the picture, we offer services around diversity, equity, and inclusion. These are designed and customized for each client based on their needs, and it is more centered around engagement than training, where we create safe spaces for groups of people to come together and have meaningful conversations on these very important topics. As I mentioned, we also do transformation strategy development, and we have evolved that into also transformation storytelling. We'll tell you more about that aspect shortly, as that's the topic of our webinar. But just to mention, the way we approach strategies is we approach it beyond the BEE scorecard. Yes, there will be aspects of the BEE scorecard that's addressed, but we look more around impact and sustainability and alignment to the business and the business values, objectives, etc. I mentioned ownership. We assist our clients with ownership options, ownership structuring, ownership advisory, ownership evaluations, and technical reports, as well as the implementation of ownership structures and transactions. And then under our BEE practice area is almost everything related to the scorecard, except for verification. So we are not verification agencies, but we do play a role in getting you ready for your annual verification. We've developed a status support program, which incorporates all of the elements that you see on the screen. Everything from scorecard computation, gap analysis, to scorecard plan development, to implementation support, verification support. We also do technical opinions and independent competent persons report, as well as bespoke research. Our team, very quickly, as you can see, it's a diverse team. And when I say diverse, I look beyond what you can see on your screen. So beyond race and gender, there are varying skill sets, knowledge, expertise across this team. And that everybody brings their different capabilities and abilities to driving our business and the services we offer. And now getting to the actual topic of today, which is telling an authentic and compelling transformation story. We would just like to share with you today what we mean by this, why it may be important, and how we go about it. So what do we mean by a transformation story? Firstly, what do we mean by transformation? So in our minds, transformation is beyond the BEE legislation, like I've said. So we really mean socioeconomic transformation. And we know the word transformation means different things to different people. But what we're talking about here is what was brought about, the change that was brought about through socioeconomic transformation. So leaning into the need for a transformation in our country, leaning into the BEE legislation and the reason that that was brought in, but looking way beyond the scorecard and the compliance aspects of the scorecard. So like I said, beyond the scorecard, incorporating diversity, equity, and inclusion. So what are we doing as a business to really engage our employees, to build a culture that is where everybody can thrive, where everybody feels like they belong? And as you know, this is very much integrated into the socioeconomic transformation aspect. We also look at ESG and ESG embedment and how that's integrated with transformation. And then we really want to tell stories about positive change. So when we talk transformation, we're looking for positive change that has been brought about by initiatives and spend and time and effort over the years that you may have embarked on. And we're also looking for organizational as well as societal impact. So through the years, implementing BEE or starting out with BEE and all the initiatives that you may have had that has grown with time, are you able to demonstrate organizational as well as societal impact? And if you're able to, are you telling that story? And are you telling it in a compelling way? And then lastly, shared value. So we look for, like I said, organizational and societal impact, but also organizational and societal benefit. And that's where we cast the lens of shared value. So story, what do we mean by the word story? I think What we don't mean is it's not a fable, it's not made up. It is when your impact aspirations are being realized, have been realized, or maybe not yet. And we'll tell you a little bit more what we mean when we say not yet. Your objectives and targets are being met or not yet. And it is based on factual information and evidence. So whatever we put down into a story needs to be substantiated by the required facts and evidence. And we're able to substantiate everything that is put down. And then, does it relate to your theory of change? So your theory of change, if you've got a theory of change already designed, then you know that is already the start of your storytelling. And we just need to plug in the gaps to be able to complete that story. But most importantly, it's an authentic narrative. It's a narrative that is firstly factual, but it's something that everybody can be proud of, everybody is aligned on. And it is a one story, one voice. And the reason we say that is because we've worked with clients before that had pieces of their stories all over the place, and it was crafted by different people, but there was disjointedness. So what we try to aim at is that there's one story that every aspect of the business, every business division, business unit, every stakeholder of the business gets to tell, but also gets to hear. So why tell a transformation story? Over and above everything else, it really is meant to inspire and to motivate all stakeholders within your business. And just leaning on stakeholders is firstly internally, it is meant to align and manage internal perception. I don't think I need to tell you about the importance of an employee value proposition or the importance of how a company is seen externally, and what employees are looking for when they join companies. So it really is down to employee attraction, but also retention. I think over the past few years and post the COVID pandemic, it's becoming more and more apparent that people are looking for meaning and purpose in their lives, and that work is not just work. I mean, work is just work. But if your work can bring you meaning and purpose, and if you feel you are with a company that gives you that, then that's already aligning to retention requirements. And then obviously it informs, it reinforces, it builds company culture, as well as company values. It's an opportunity to align everyone on the company values and purpose. And, undoubtedly, if you have motivated, inspired employees, it will naturally lead into productivity, which then leads into profitability and sustainability for the business. And then there's also the external perceptions, and you can use your story to really reinforce or build your brand and reputation externally. It will also be used to enhance public perception, client perception, as well as government or regulator perceptions, and basically all interested and affected external stakeholders. But also importantly, it is an opportunity for you to celebrate and leverage the successes that you've had over the years. I mean, some of our clients get so busy with meeting the compliance requirements of the BEE scorecard and doing that on an annual basis that they sometimes forget to pause and just reflect on what has happened over the past however many years that they've been implementing this, and really celebrate the success stories and then build off and leverage off those success stories that they've had. It is also an opportunity to demonstrate widely to a wider audience your performance as well as your progress against your stated objectives and targets for transformation. And it is an opportunity to reinforce your impact strategy. So if you've set out over a few years to really create positive impact in society and within the organization, and have set objectives around this, then it is an opportunity to reinforce that and align everyone on where you're going and why it is that you need to do what you need to do. It is also an opportunity to review, reframe, and refresh your strategies. So sometimes we need to see things in black and white very clearly to be able to measure our progress. But then it may also uncover some gaps or some opportunities to improve. And so it's an opportunity to refresh your strategy. And lastly, but not least, it is also to develop collateral for use in marketing and communications campaigns. So just the elements of our transformation story, the way we go about it is we generally start with an executive summary, and that is usually a 3 to 4 page document. It will include a summary of all of your initiatives, your objectives, your strategy, etc. It will include a timeline of what you've achieved over the years with some infographics. If you would like to zoom in on ownership and share your story around your ownership structure and the different shareholders that you have, then we're able to bring that in. But bear in mind, we can't bring in the level of detail of each and every element in an executive summary. So there is the opportunity also to expand that to tell your full story, which could very easily be a 20-page transformation brochure. In fact, we've just submitted one for a client that ended up being 21 pages. But that's really going into detail of each element and beyond the scorecard, information on their diversity, equity, and inclusion, information and interviews with graduates that started and that have been promoted through the years. So that's a very detailed story. With regards to visual stories, so this is where we bring in infographics, we bring in photos of your projects, your initiatives, your employees, interviews with them. And like I just mentioned, a full story could easily be 21 pages, but it will include articles, it will include interviews, it will include content around impact, as well as future aspirations. So it's an opportunity to, state where you're at now, but what you believe still needs to be done and what your objectives are going forward. We can include translation into other South African languages. We tend to include a frequently asked questions page if that is necessary for you. That usually comes in if you want to use the story externally. So external stakeholders may have questions that your internal stakeholders already know the answers to. And after the whole story brochure that I'm talking about has been developed, we can also offer you some videos. So the content, would be available, and we can offer you professionally animated, professionally developed videos that you can then use internally and externally. So you can actually have snippets of your story that you would want to play for your stakeholders internally and externally. We include virtual reality here because we also have VR specialists within our group. And sometimes after a client has developed this beautiful transformation story brochure, they want to then socialize it in the business and distribute it, cascade it within the business. But a nice innovative way of interacting with that story is through VR, and it can be done on your PC or in person. So we can tell you more about that. And then lastly, we also offer engagements, and this is really focus groups to socialize the story, but also to get input, to provide platforms for Q&A, and just ensuring that the story lands and that feedback loops are closed. Okay, so that's some of the elements of the way we approach it. I just would like to share with you now our high-level process of how we go about developing the story. We obviously, you know, after our scoping meeting and acceptance of proposal, etc., we will have a contextualization and a kickoff meeting with all relevant internal stakeholders. We like to suggest, especially if it's a big organization with lots of information from different parts of the organization, we recommend a project steering committee. And this committee will have representation from the different business divisions as well as communications. But it's just an opportunity to have a group of people that you can check in with on a regular basis throughout the process. So the first real step is for us to do desktop research and to review the information that you provide. The information that you provide will be typically your BE information, your initiatives across the scorecard, and everything that you have done that doesn't fit under any of those elements. So diversity, equity, and inclusion, culture initiatives, employee engagement initiatives, ESG, broadly looking at the business from a socioeconomic angle. And then we also allow time for internal engagements, and that is where we do either one-on-one or small group interviews with selected internal stakeholders that are able to give us more information or contextualize things better from the information that we've received. We may still have questions, need clarity, etc. And so we've allowed time to actually speak to people, but also during this process to get a sense of what is important, what is it that you would like to convey from the bits of information that we've received. And post that, we will have a high-level storyboard, so we'll put everything together and present back to the business, get a sense of what's landing, what's not landing, where the focus areas should be, where we perhaps need more information. We will do it at that step in time. And then we move into crafting the story. And here we start with storylines. And storylines, there's just 3 examples here, but typically they'll be around background to the company, context, where the company started, where you find yourselves now, what did the board look like over a 10-year period, for example, how that has evolved, how that has become more diverse, hopefully. But also, you know, from a shareholder perspective, how has that evolved? The different legislations that came in and your responses to the different legislation over, let's say, a 10-year period. And then we will have to write up the technical aspects, and being BEE professionals, if there's ownership transactions, etc., we're able to do that with ease. And then we'll have to write up the impact storyline. So through all of your different initiatives, what was the impact that was achieved? And for impact, we lean very heavily on if you have ICPRs or information from your beneficiaries, from your first-line beneficiaries. And if we need to then dig deeper and get that information, you know, we're able to do that as well. And then the next step is coming back to the business, internal testing and alignment with what we've crafted thus far, your inputs, your feedback. And then we move into design and sub-editing. And this is where we bring in our design professionals that I'll tell you about a little bit now. And this is where we move into the actual visual representation of the story in a booklet or a brochure format. Come back to the business to do testing, get feedback, and then finally it's client review and approval. So now I would just like to share with you what it could typically look like. So this is just some visual representation of a full story example. And remember, you don't need to go for a full story. You may want to go just for 3 or 4 pages. But a full story will typically have a nice cover page. We'll have a table of contents, as you can see here. Obviously bringing in pictures from the business so that it's authentic. And then an executive summary, as you can see here. We allow for, graphical representation, a lot of visual effects with tables, presenting data in an understandable and easy to read format. This is the timeline I was talking about, could typically look like this, but where it plots your company's transformation journey over the years. So you can see lots of infographics, tables, information, a lot of information and information over the years. We talk through context, we talk through impact, obviously, and all of this is professionally designed. So in our group, we have individuals that can help us with this. This is the frequently asked questions page that I spoke to you about. And so why us, right? Because there are communication companies out there, we know that. You also have internal communication specialists. So why us? What can we offer you? So we can offer you a seasoned team of professionals that have worked on empowerment transactions and transformation strategies across industries in the large listed and unlisted space, and we continue to do so. So we also have the ability, the knowledge, and the expertise to make sense of and integrate many different facets of transformation and empowerment, such as BE, ESG, diversity, equity, and inclusion. We incorporate the SDGs and the NDP goals into our strategies. So we're able to have a holistic bird's eye view of what empowerment and transformation really means. And so we're able to sift out the real stories and the gems, that you may be sitting with and showcase that. We're also able to provide an external lens to objectively consider the information that you share with us so that we can ensure that it is accurate, it is factual, whatever gets published can be substantiated. And we're able to challenge you and ask you questions around, what else you may have. We're also able to show you where there may be gaps and where there may be opportunities to improve even further. As I mentioned, we have an established team of content developers and editors, designers, specialists in virtual reality, as well as video animators and production specialists that can navigate the CI requirements of organizations. We work closely with the company's communications team and other relevant stakeholders, so we do not replace your internal comms team. We work side by side with them to get the story told. We do have project management capabilities, so we can work independently as well as engage with internal and external stakeholders and leadership when required. And lastly, we just have a real love for empowerment and learning through storytelling. These are just some of our implementing partners. Multi-Dimensions is the company we use to actually produce that end result that you saw, that brochure. Wolf and Halo helps us with our video and animation production. Relative Media is a media house that we can tap into if we need even more advanced video production. Six Capitals is our ESG advisory team. And then Tailspin is our virtual reality service provider. So thank you, everyone. Thanks for that. I want to hand over to Eric now. But before I do so, I want to just introduce Eric's section. So it's wonderful to tell your transformation story if you have a story to tell. But what if you don't have a story to tell? And what if you need to work on that impact strategy in order to tell your story? And that is what Eric is going to take you through now. So Eric, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thanks, Irosha. Irosha, thank you very much. So I'm just going to take you through a transformation strategy and considerations that you should bear in mind in developing a transformation strategy. And also I'm going to talk about the interrelationship between a triple B scorecard and the actual transformation strategy itself, of which Irosha's identified for us what exactly do we mean by transformation. There's a saying that goes that if you don't know where you're going to end up somewhere else. So therefore, very important that we start off by designing a strategy and also thinking about what transformational impact do we want to achieve in society in order for us to tell the story that we want to tell. So some of the features of a transformation strategy is firstly that we need to align our transformation strategy with our business strategy. So we need to understand what is our business objectives, what are our transformation objectives, and how can we set up our transformation strategy, our initiatives, our budgets in order to achieve and to support that overall business strategy. A second feature is that the strategy would consider all stakeholder expectations, not only internal stakeholders, but also external stakeholders. And in order to understand where we fit into the picture, we need to know where we stand with regard to our peers and our competitors. Where should we be aiming for? What kind of impact do we want to achieve? And what story do we want to tell on the back of that impact that is created by our transformation strategy? The strategy should be practical, and we should also be able to measure the impact so that we can talk to the impact and that we can tell the story of the impact that we are creating in society. We want to achieve further business benefits. So there's an interrelationship between the BE scorecard, your BE level, harnessing the initiatives that you are already doing or that you may be doing for the scorecard, and also attuning those initiatives to achieve the beyond the scorecard impact that we wish to achieve and that supports the business and that we can tell a good transformation story about. We want to create shared value, so not only build company value and individual value, but also create value and add value to society in everything that we do from a transformation perspective. And then a strategy needs to be sustainable. We want to ensure that we can continue supporting and creating this impact, and that it is not only a once-off, but that it is embedded into our organization in terms of budgets, in terms of feedback, in terms of the impact and the measurement thereof. So how do we differentiate between a scorecard plan and a transformation strategy? So firstly, a scorecard plan is looking at the contributions and the inputs that we do into a BE scorecard, and the plan would focus on scorecard points. So it's quite different from a transformation strategy, which in turn focuses on what is the transformational and the transformative impact that we would like to achieve in society. And it is built around a scorecard plan. So the budgets that we have for BEE and the targets that are set by Element, these budgets power initiatives, and these initiatives addresses both the scorecard, but they also address the impact that we want to achieve. So there's a clear interrelationship between the transformation strategy and the plan, the scorecard plan, and a big difference between the two. The transformation strategy needs to align, it's got to support business, and we also want to integrate the transformation strategy into the management systems of the company. So in other words, that there's a responsibility structure, an accountability structure, management structure, and that the KPIs that are in place within the organization also take into consideration transformation and the BE scorecard that is the driver. So when we think about a transformation strategy, we need to be clear why we're doing it. And we need to be clear on what is the impact we want to achieve and what is the story that we want to tell on the back of that impact. And we would also be wanting to achieve scorecard points by the design of the different initiatives that we undertake. In deciding what we want to do, we need to identify initiatives that will be impactful, that will be effective, and that are also efficient, and that are recognized on the BE scorecard. So how much of this will I do? That depends on budgets. We want to quantify the budgets that we have available and also the budgets that we want to contribute towards the BE scorecard, and that we would need to implement in order to achieve the transformation impact. And we need to make sure that these are correctly calculated and calibrated. So by calibrated, we mean that we need to be on the same page with the BE verification agency so that we know what this is going to be translating to in terms of a BE scorecard and certificate. So the strategy development process firstly starts off with a contextualization, agreeing on where we want to go, what the scope is that we want to achieve. There's a knowledge sharing portion to make sure everyone's on the same page. And there's the setting of a governance structure for the project to make sure that it is appropriately designed, but also implemented subsequently. The next phase is to establish the baseline. Typically, this could be either a verified scorecard, the scorecard, so that we know what the gaps are, we understand what the contribution targets are, and we also understand what the financial budgets are that are available for the implementation of the scorecard. We would look at a competitor analysis, understand where the organization is within the BE landscape and the competitive landscape. One would map your existing initiatives and evaluate whether these initiatives are achieving the objectives that you would wish to achieve. And then lastly, look at perceptions, both internally and external perceptions in terms of the baseline and also objectives. The next phase is to identify and clearly define the transformation objectives, and also how do we define success within the organization. We would look at business objectives, transformation objectives. We would look at in issues within the sector. We would look at the business issues, material sustainability issues, and then also try to identify how can we achieve shared value for the company and also for society. The next phase of the strategy development process is to identify different scenarios and different possible options, and also to look at focus areas. What are the transformation focus areas that we want to target, and what options can we develop for these different focus areas? One can then analyze your options and against the value drivers, the definitions of success that we've identified, and then test options within the organization to see just how achievable these are they palatable, and are they implementable? The next phase is to then plot a strategic path to see how we want to develop both impact and the BE scorecard, and to select the appropriate options that we want to pursue, and then design a strategic path in terms of pursuing these options and testing those paths with the leadership. The last phase of the process is to formulate the strategy, to document the strategy, to present and socialize, and to get ultimate buy-in and sign-off of that strategy. And once that is achieved, we look at an implementation plan and a governance structure to implement the strategy that has been designed. So if we look at the interrelationship between the baseline scorecard, the scorecard plan, and the transformation strategy, firstly, when we establish our baseline, we've got to make sure that the baseline is credible. So if we put garbage into the scorecard, we're going to get garbage out. So only recognizable initiatives need to be plotted in the baseline scorecard. And we also need to make sure that these can be evidence that they will survive a B verification. And based on that scorecard, we then design the scorecard plan that identifies budgets, identifies contribution targets, and also identifies initiatives that will support both the transformation strategy and also the scorecard. We'd look at an annual refreshment of the transformation strategy to ensure that we keep supporting business strategy and objectives, and to ensure that we have the desired impact on all our stakeholders in society. We look at the integration of that strategy into the management system of the company, and also then review and do a periodic update of the scorecard plan that has the contributions to the scorecard itself. So the transformation strategy is underpinned by implementation. I've mentioned that many of the initiatives that we have to drive the strategy would also be driving the BE scorecard. And in order to sustain this process, we annually need to look at a refreshment of our strategy, our scorecard plan, and that is the planning stage that we have typically just before the financial year and during Q1, where we need to look at budgets and a forecast scorecard. Thereafter, the implementation stage begins throughout the actual full financial year, and either at half year or slightly below after that, or even monthly, a monitoring process needs to be put in place in order to monitor the state of implementation and also the impact of implemented initiatives. And thereafter, there's the verification process that leads to the BE certificate, that to many people is an indication of transformation. However, as mentioned, the transformation strategy that utilizes the BE scorecard looks at overall impact that is achieved in society. So we need to work our plan, and as part of the implementation process, a Gantt chart is very useful to make sure that we know what we're going to be doing, who's going to be doing that, and by when that will be done. And also to identify a governing structure to say, okay, but who's responsible, who's accountable, and to make sure that there are KPIs in place. A regular transformation committee team should be put in place as part of the governance structure to make sure that the update meetings are held with a tailored agenda, and that any issues that are identified are timeously escalated to ensure that obstacles are removed or that expectations are managed. And there needs to be alignment with solution providers. These solution providers need to be managed, and communication needs to be in place to make sure that effective implementation happens. And then the setting and monitoring of KPIs within the organization to ensure that we get traction and the strategy is translated into a reality. So thinking about our transformation story that we want to tell and a transformation strategy that we need in place in order to tell this, we need to ask ourselves, what are our challenges? And do we understand our challenges? Because this will lead us to where do we need to complement ourselves in order to achieve success and to be able to tell a good story on the back of a good transformation strategy. So firstly, we need to know, can we and have we correctly identified our transformation impact and our desired impact? Secondly, do we have the knowledge and do we have the technical understanding of developments that may impact not only on our transformation strategy, but also in the legislative environment and the BE environment? Do we have sufficient focus on transformation, or is core business taking priority, and with transformation being seen as a non-core process, is it being neglected? And do we have the right competence? Do we have the experience and the ability to implement? And then are we sufficiently objective? Are we not seeing our own constraints and our own mistakes? So an objective view is very valuable. And lastly, do we have the capacity to actually tell a story, to design a story, and to design and implement a effective transformation strategy? So that kind of self-reflection is very important in order to identify where we need to be complemented in order to be successful. All right. Thank you, everybody, from my side.
Just on behalf of Eric and myself, thank you very much for making time to be with us and listen to us today. I'm sure you know how to get hold of us. Should you need to, we'll be happy to chat to you further about what we've shared with you today.